climate change. People are calling its crisis over the time, and it is
climate change.
Climate changes.
Around 2002 and 2011, on average, over 260 million people a year are being affected by disasters.
Scientists say Typhoon Haiyan is one of the strongest storms ever to make landfall. Some experts say man-made climate change is to blame. Bob Ward is from the Grantham.
Today's show is about the effect the climate crisis is having on Africa's people, and it's why.
climate change is real and serious issue.
But for Somalia, just in 2018, there were 7.5% of the population displaced because of climate-fueled disasters, because of flooding. This is in addition to conflict.
What is actually climate change? Why should we care?
Climate change is here. Climate change is happening. We are well into the 6th mass extinction event.
Europe is currently colder than the Arctic.
More than 1,000 people being rescued just in the early morning hours of Sunday.
Millions of people are likely to suffer worsening food and water shortages.
Drought, which is now in its 10th year, is a phenomena that's here to stay.
We've never seen a year's worth of rain in less than 7 days.
And climate change today is because of human activities. I and you.
If you want to know, the factor occurrence of climate change is the increasing human population. The human activity encouraging the anthropogenic climate change. The example of human activity is fossil oil burn, aerosol release, and land transition from agriculture and deforestation activity. This activity contribute high level of carbon dioxide (CO2), which can increase the acidity of seawater. The next factor is greenhouse effect. Unsustainable agricultural activity contribute to the greenhouse gas GHG emissions, around 17% mainly from agriculture sector and additional 7 until 14% from land use changes. Nitrous oxide emissions from soils, fertilizer, manures and urine from grazing animals and methane production from ruminant can contribute to higher temperature and lead to global warming. Greenhouse effect also can increase the causes of wildfire and the release of harmful gases to atmosphere. The last factor is global warming, where it causes from greenhouse effect. It raises level of seawater and ice is melting, which can deepen the sea. The salt water spreads through the ocean basin, which induces a spike in the volume of water. This can lead to flood disaster. Other than that, do you know the non-sustainable agricultural activities are among the activities that lead to climate change?
Agricultural practices that lead to climate change. First, deforestation. Trees help to regulate the climate by removing carbon dioxide from atmosphere. This indicates that the carbon dioxide contained in such trees is released into the atmosphere as areas are deforested. So, when they have been cut down, the positive impact is missed and the carbon contained in trees is discharged into the air, contributing to the greenhouse effect. The second one is livestock farming produce ammonia and greenhouse gas. Livestock farming has an impact even on the air via the emissions of ammonia and greenhouse gases represented by methane, nitrous oxide, and carbon dioxide, resulting simultaneously from animal housings, yards, storage of manure, and land distribution. For example, methane is the main contributor of greenhouse gas emissions from beef cattle and is largely produced from belching that naturally occurs as cattle digest feed. Other emissions occur during manure excretion and storage. Next, Nitrogen fertilizer produce nitrous oxide emissions. Most all of the nitrogen in organic fertilizer must be transformed into inorganic nitrogen before its nitrogen is available for absorption. Most fertilizer nitrogen is mobile while haven't been taken up by plants, difficult to contain in the field and prone to loss. Fertilizer nitrogen may be lost as nitrate to groundwater or as nitrous, dinitrogen, or ammonia gases. The emissions of these gases may contribute to climate change. Next, burning of fossil fuels from heavy machineries during agricultural activities. The use of transportation such as trucks, lorries, and farm machinery in the plantation sector would lead to GHG emissions. Carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases such as methane, nitrous oxide, and hydrofluorocarbon are building up, causing the atmosphere of the Earth to warm, contributing in climate changes. The last one is monoculture cause farmers to use more chemicals cause GHG emissions. Monoculture cause the soil quality become poor and therefore unable to promote healthy plant growth. To overcome this problem, farmers use chemical fertilizers to support the growth of plants and encourage fruit production. Monocropping also led to the spread of pests and diseases that need to be treated with even more chemicals. Pesticides and fertilizers are used in higher dosage, which resulting to further GHG emissions that trigger climate change.
Now, I would like to proceed to the impact of climate change on agriculture. There are several impacts that will lead to the climate change on the agriculture. For the first impact is the effect yield of the certain crop at the some place. This is because when the increasing rate of the temperature and also the carbon dioxide, thus the yield production will decline if the crop optimum temperature exceeds the higher temperature. For the second impact of the climate change on agriculture, which is food insecurity. This is occur for the some vulnerable groups in the country, such as the poor income family, because the production of the food will decrease and the increasing in the food pricing that lead to be more expensive due to mitigation of climate change that increase the energy prices. If you want to know, extreme drought conditions often causes by the climate change. From this, it will lead to the worsened crop production by inducing the immobilization of nutrients and salt accumulation in soils. From this, it will give the side effect, which is it can give the dry, unhealthy, salty, and eventually infertile. This impact were causes by the heavy rain and that often lead to the flooding, which also harmful to the crops and also soil structure. As we know, if the flooding affect the agricultural sector in the long-term period, it will give the impact to the agricultural sector, which is will give the waterlogged condition. From this, most plants cannot survive because the roots need to breathe and will affect the plant productivity and the yield of the production. Based on the caterpillars, impact of heavy rain on agriculture, especially in August, the lower crop production led to fungal sprouting infection of the crops area. It is expected that the overall effect climate change on agriculture will be harmful, affecting global food security. Did you know, when the agricultural sector planted the crops, they need the availability of the water supply. But the problem is when it's come to the climate change, the plant or crops will not gain the enough supply of water content and will lead to the crops die. This is caused by the extreme drought condition that has been said by me just now.
Okay, now let's move to the take-home message to farmers and society on how to reduce the climate change. The first one is by doing rotating crops and embracing diversity. Rotating our crops adds diversity and brings a balance to our soil profile. Rotating crops also can disrupt the cycle of pests and controls the pest population plowing in fields. As an bonus, this allows us to reduce the amount of pesticide. Other than that, rotating crops also can introduce new nutrients to the soils because different crops require different nutrients to thrive. Therefore, we can lighten the fertilizer load, lower both fuel for equipment and greenhouse gas emissions. The next step is by planting cover crop. Cover crops offer many benefits for agriculture that include erosion control, reduced compaction, and nutrient leaching. There are three main categories of cover crop, depending on their properties and options for use, which are grasses, legumes, and broadleaf non-legumes. The third way is by reducing or eliminating tillage. Tillage reduction can enhance soil aggregation, promote biological activity, and increase water holding capacity and infiltration rates. It also can minimizing machinery passes over the field, reduce labor and saves time, limits machinery wear, conserve fuel, and also can reduce fossil fuel-based GHG emissions. The next way is farmers can use renewable energy. This can include on-farm renewable energy production such as solar panel and wind turbines, which can reduce their climate footprint. Other than that, farmers and society also can do organic farming practices. Organic farming prohibits most synthetic inputs, which means reduce GHG emissions as well as cleaner soil, water, and food. Besides that, for livestock managers, they can reducing livestock methane emissions. It can do by install digester to capture methane produced during manure storage, and the captured methane can then be used to generate electricity. And the last one is by adopting agroforestry practices. Adopting agroforestry practices can ponderate the effects of climate change by reducing atmospheric concentration of greenhouse gases by sequestering carbon in woody plant tissue via photosynthesis. By mixing trees or shrubs, farmers also can provide shade and shelter to protect plants, animals, and water resources while also potentially offering additional income.
Agricultural production will manifest large climate change impacts. There is need to improve agricultural practices while protecting the environment as climate is changing. Achieving this goal needs effective action with the development of new and alternative technologies and the willingness of people to change their habit. Last but not least, good agricultural practices are important to ensure sustaining agricultural production while preserving natural ecosystems.